Hi. Well, welcome. And thank you for, making this part of your, recovery journey. Because that's really what it's all about. As this is Pancake Marathon. And so, as, you know, one could say, life is but a journey, right? And we're meant to enjoy that journey. Or, well, you know, as I have come to in moments to basically essentially realize that, you know, it's all about the journey because the destination is, well, it's always there. It's never that it's not. It's just that essentially it is there in of itself, just hanging out. And so with it, just hanging out, essentially because the destination is always there. And by simple terms of itself, you're the destination. And really the journey is you coming into, moments of perfection, essentially, from this simple way of understanding spirituality, which kind of simply comes down to, well, it is that of, can be defined in a sense of spirituality is that of you realizing and seeing that the innermost parts of yourself are as what is perfection. And so, just to give some context and clarity to that of, because it's always about progress, not perfection. Essentially, it's about attraction rather than promotion within that same sense as itself, to simply say. And so, it's like the same consideration of how I absolutely find it that of what is life upon the simple matter of fact of, getting it. In recovery, there are some that would say getting it is not other than, you don't get it. Yet, in my sense, through my how I carry my message, because we all have a message to carry. It's our experience, strength, and hope, essentially. And so, of itself, to simply say that, you know, when I say I get it, or you got it, you get it, essentially, it's because you keep putting the work in to manifest that life through what? The trust of your higher power, a fellowship, you're finding your why, you're in a sense of saying. That's, and yet, um, and so, yeah, this is essentiality of, well, life and living life on life's terms. Because I don't really know what I'm going to say. I have an idea, right? I know that I want to talk about essentially today that of putting it on paper. And what does that mean, essentially? The aspects of all that thought process and that obsession of that, which is essentially worry of just being too much in control, trying to control too many things, essentially. And so, essentially, that's what we shall talk about today, of putting it on paper and getting out of your way because you can put it on paper. And so, as it comes to moments of life, essentially, that of what is the aspect of living life on life's terms. Yes, we live in a an age or whatever it may be, in a sense of this now moment of digital interfacing and stuff, and as such as simply to say, yes, and yet sometimes that's too complicated, in a sense of saying. So to keep it simple, putting on it on paper can definitely help, and yet it still can be applied on paper or within that digital form. Now, because it can be applied in the simple matter of facts of putting it on paper, or have it digitalized, it's the same principle or approach, essentially, because the ultimate principle, when it comes within recovery of as in and of itself, to simply say, is God. That good early direction. That's the highest principle. And if you've done any reading from the Alcoholics Anonymous book, essentially, you'll see that that's what it actually says as well. You know, and you're the one that's supposed to carry it out and all that kind of stuff. As being the new agent of having God be the new agent, or I'm not sure verbatim that essentially to say at this moment. Yet essentially, I think it's It's you are the agent to your new boss, and that's God, essentially. You know, being of service and being a servant and, carrying a message. And yet, to simply say, getting those thoughts out, putting it on somewhere else, essentially, is absolutely a great approach. Yes, in a sense of saying, step five is essentially that of, you know, uh, don't isolate communication, and that of, if you can't really, you know, if you're not at a point because maybe you're at the point where whatever it is that you're obsessing about, you know, that pain that you're holding on to, whatever, that you're using in a sense, if it's AA, then it's alcohol in of itself, you're powerless and it's unmanageable, basically, essentially. Yet, to essentially say that once you get it out of your head in a sense of what is step five, because what if that the other is that piece of paper, because all that stuff, and kind of going into what I was essentially saying is, well, what if because you're supposed to develop a relationship with your higher power. And it's not that I didn't ask my higher power for what am I essentially going to do here? What is my choice? What do I choose from? And essentially, just to kind of put it in context of my experience, basically, is I was attempting to figure out what fish tank to get for these crabs that I got as a gift from where I work at this moment. And because they got taken off the menu because there's no more of that menu, essentially. So there's like 50 of them, basically. There's a lot. And so I'm trying to find the right kind of fish tank, basically. And man, it was quite a journey, considering I didn't know I got them. And then I cut these water bottle jugs into temporary fish tanks so that they don't get crowded and all that. And then, man, I fed them like I had to get like food from the store, basically, of shrimp, and then feed that. And then it's like it's just this whole thing and whole process of, it kind of started smelling, and then, oh my goodness, and then do I and so essentially, so that's kind of how I started with that, essentially. And yes, the fish tanks or the water bottles are great and all that, but it comes down to being of service as well. And to kind of keep going on the whole step five thing, putting it on paper first, and that of elaborating more on the whole trusting your higher power, essentially. So I asked, and then through as what is step five in a sense of saying, I asked somebody else. And there's points to where I realize I don't know how to approach things sometimes, and I'm just freaking out, essentially, in a simple way of saying, and I'm just asking all these things, and they never even replied yet. I'm like, you know what? Thank you. You helped me out, because I was like, because I'm basically from the aspect of praying, asking, right? And the meditation, the answer is going to come because I was praying and putting the work in, step 11. And yet, so I was like, oh, do I get a fish tank? And how much water I put in it, as like if they were swimming in a sense, right? But these crabs don't need that much water. They're freshwater crabs, and they live in a river. So they're going to be on land and all that stuff. Okay, so, and then, all the money it takes and just all those factors. And so, anywho, so basically, this is kind of why I am inspired and motivated to talk about this today. Putting it on paper, essentially, getting it out of my head and not obsessing over it, essentially. And so, when it comes down to it, did I do what I said, and I text them and all that, and there was a point where they were like, stop texting me right now, essentially, because they have stuff going on, and they're a house manager, and and because they brought it up, basically, like, oh, well, you didn't get a fish tank, da 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 da, you got to get an aerator, da 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 da, and it's like, oh, so this is why I included them within that. And yet I realized that for what my sponsor said, put it on paper, weigh it out, and yet, so essentially I started doing that, and it was digital because, yet regardless if it's digital or on paper, just get it out of your head, put it on that paper, and, what is what, right? What are you expecting from it? What do you want from it? And then now, essentially what this really helps with, essentially, is to then you can see the roadmap. You can go ahead and play out the whole tape right then and there on that piece of paper or whatever it is. And I finally came to the conclusion of getting like a turtle thing, or regardless of what kind of fish tank I got. That's not what the point of this is. The point that I'm attempting to really, really hit home with is essentially that of, well, get it out of your head. Find a way to keep your side of the street clean, to keep your house in order, zen your garden, you know. And the way to do that is to put on that paper, essentially, to simply say, so that you can really play out the whole tape and really factor in what's what, so you can give time. And then, because it's on that paper, essentially, out of your head, you don't have to take the energy and effort and all that kind of stuff to have to reevaluate where you were at and how you can go about it, because it's already there. So now you can have a peace of mind, because you're going to basically realize that you didn't forget anything, or you can still add stuff, but you're not going to have that feel in a sense of you forgot something, or you did it and you're like, oh, I forgot, that's why I wanted to do something else, and then you can't take it back, essentially, in a sense of saying. So essentially, overall, it really, really does come to the simple point of the matter of fact of, clearing away the wreckage, this pain that you're holding on to, or whatever it may be. So putting it on that paper, is just a tool that can help. When my sponsor was explaining this for the scenario of what I was going through, like, they're like, well, I was like, okay, but what if this doesn't solve everything, right? In a sense, and essentially what they said is, this can definitely take all the pain of anything else and make it within ease. You're going to have such a more of an easier moment in life because you're doing this. It can definitely, possibly, absolutely clear up everything in the future for everything. So don't say that it won't. Absolutely, it will. And they're right. It really did, because I applied it this time. And oh my gosh, it helped out so much. Right? I actually finally got to basically the perfect thing at this moment. That I was able to, now I'm going to talk about it, that I found basically it's a turtle tank, essentially. And yet the food can be dry, so they can get to it if they want to. It's not going to get in, all, lost and deformed, and they can't get to it anymore. And then I'm going to have to put more food in there, and then, and so, and it empties from the bottom, and it has a lid to it. And so these, I got my peace of mind all factored in there, to where they're not going to escape. They're going to have a better life. It's just, that's what I was saying about step 12, being of service, essentially, And so, and what other way can you practice your principles in all your affairs? They're written so simply. They really are. You can apply these things in every aspect of your life. Once you are able to get past the face value of it's that word alcohol, right? Or just the words that are in a sense there. It's not that you're going to rewrite the steps. Those things are perfect, right? You're practicing them. You're not perfecting them. You're not the face of that recovery program, whatever it may be, non or 12-step recovery aspects, right? And so, it's in another way of saying, just to put it as, some clarification of how else can you practice this in all your affairs, the principles, and apply that and all that kind of stuff is, to simply say, are you thirsty? Oh, so you're powerless over being thirsty and your life is unmanageable. 2, came to believe that water or getting something as such as water will restore you to sanity, right? And because you made a decision to turn your will and your life over to water, you're able to get restored to sanity. I know step 2 is come to believe. Okay. Yet, I'm not perfect. I'm not a saint, but I'm making progress along spiritual lines. Absolutely. And that's really what it's about. Yet see how you can simply apply that in everything? It really is that simple. It really, really is. And so essentially, I hope I lined something up for you today. for anyone, actually. Even myself. I hope that I lined up my higher power to come in my life more, basically, to essentially say. And yet, in all actuality, I absolutely hope you find something that requires you to keep coming back to whatever this aspect of recovery that you're at. And that's really what it comes down to. Find your why. And I hope that you find it. That unity factor, that relatability factor, the God of your own understanding, right? That good early direction, that good on aspect. Or okay, I was trying to change up the acronym, but anywho, right? Essentially, there's points where it's good orderly direction, it's good order, determination, or whatever. Anywho. So, the next part that's coming up, though, because I know that I concluded this episode of this podcast of Pancake Marathon. Thank you very much for making this part of your recovery. Thank you, and always recall, yes, in your low moments, it's all good. You made it, right? Essentially, because you didn't use, you might have emotionally used, but and even if you did use physically, okay, it happened. You needed some more step 0, aspects in your life, more research before you got back into your life. You're still in recovery. It does not matter. Once you have that desire to stop using, bam, you're always in recovery, regardless of what's part of your story or not. So essentially, it comes down to the simple fact of, your shoes do fit just right. You do deserve to take up space. And you're worth all this effort of just getting your peace of mind back up. Because that's what it is. You're going to get restored to sanity. We're all there at one point. And now we're just going to get back there again. If you keep putting the work in. And that's how you can get it. Absolutely. As simply to say, I love you. Thank you for making this part of your recovery today. And thank you for being part of my recovery today as well. The next aspect of the song essentially is kind of what simply sums up how I felt about recovery. Absolutely. Well, have a beautiful one. Thank you.
I'll follow you wherever you go. Stay close to you, 'cause darling, you're my home.